Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say hello and welcome. Welcome to a fresh, brand new edition of the program ASHFORD GARLEY Live on British Radio Africa. It feels great to be back home as always. Some heard the name, some heard people talk about them. You've gotten the opportunity tonight to match the face to the voice. First off, we are not where we want to be now, but this is where God wants us to be, and with that, we want to give Him thanks and praise. We're grateful to Him for the position we're in right now. Some call Him the mastermind, the doctor of love, the medicine of the microphone, the golden voice of radio. Basi Yompro, Sekoria Epelia, Bediaku Egweple, Borobla e pare koyo borosei, Groba, quick konyo siokro, Jesse to Payege, Zepon Pleo Dana Jaco, Mea Treji. Yeah, we no muzo and we madobo to dry. I do ade wapo. He doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than a lion. Africa's media doobie dude extraordinaire. As for the giant, that now you know me, Garley. Welcome. I said, well, what let bro laughing for? Well, hello, Lighty. Hello, the rest of the guys, including our special guest panelist, Coach. Welcome to the show. And how was your weekend?
Well, welcome. Thanks for having me. My weekend was relaxing. You know, it was a cold weekend. Just spent time with the family and took it easy. Went by too fast, but I'm glad to be back. I'm looking forward to this conversation again.
Okay, Idatus.
Greetings, such a pleasure to be with all of you wonderful panelists. Glad to see my friend and brother Peter. Greetings to our wonderful listeners, librarians. It's a pleasure being back once more. God bless.
Okay, Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts.
Good evening, my fellow panelists. Good evening to you, Mr. Garley. Welcome, Peter. Welcome to our listeners. And thank you for joining us tonight. We are going to have a great show. We have a full panelist, a full team here tonight. So just make yourselves comfortable as we begin the show. Thank you. Back to you,
Dr. James T. Fisk.
Yeah, my congratulations. My greetings to everyone, all of the panelists, and our guest, Mr. Kwewe today. I want to say greetings to everyone in watching and listening land, and we are hoping to have another explosive episode of ASHFORD GARLEY Live on British Radio Africa. Thank you.
Well, Coach, tell us about some of the secrets. How do you prepare for games and stuff like that? Because I'm going a European tour now, and yesterday I did like 15 miles in walking. That roughly about 5.5 hours in walking, and today I did 8 miles. And in the last 2 weeks, no rice and just been exercising, and the weight's just flying off, man. Because the guys in Europe prepare themselves, and I try to feeling good about myself. You're muted.
Yeah, you're well on your way. So let me try to not talk slippery. You're well on your way, my man. Yeah, conditioning. That's one of the biggest secrets. Conditioning, going with a lot of gas. Yes.
Okay. Dr. Fisk, how's the exercise coming, man?
Well, we talked about it off air. When I'm home, I actually changed my garage into a gym and burn 450 calories. I usually, for those who know about the treadmill, I start at a speed of 4 and end at a speed of 9. So that's excessive running.
Good.
Yeah. So, and then after that, I lift some weights. Of course, I'm currently benching 225. So that's not bad. That's after running. Yeah.
That is used to do taekwondo growing up, and this guy, I used to envy this guy because man can't get fat. The man would do all the eating with us, and he still maintain his body. What's up, Reverend Adi? What have you been doing for exercise, man?
Well, I used to do 50 push-ups. I'm still trying to maintain my 50 push-ups. I haven't done it in a while, but I think if anyone bets me, I can cut my 50 push-up. So I'm waiting for me and coach to get on the same pitch. I will not do a lot of running, but if you tell me to do my little push-up, I can get hit 10 right now, accurately.
You see, coach, I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and I said, man, for my age now, I don't want to be doing the lifting. I just want to just walk, because when you start to lift and you stop, the muscle turns into fat, and to get rid of it can be very hard. So, but when you walk, when you walk and gradually get rid of the fat, you can maintain that. I don't want to be muscular. I just want to be sexy now. What do you think?
You got this down, brother. Whatever you guys are doing looks like it's working. So keep doing
it. Okay, folks. Now, having said that, what's trending, Idatus?
Well, what is trending is the fact that the finance minister, Samuel Tuep, I believe in a meeting with our European partners, stated that government heads and agencies need to start making reports, and that they can no longer run the government on the basis of friendship. And he used a Liberian colloquial or parlance, Baku. That was the word he used. And that they will be held accountable for submitting reports. If not, he will start withholding their salaries. Also, some Liberians demonstrated, I believe, today and solicited justice from Musa Dane regarding the Shalom Musu's case. And he said that government is working on it, as well as the case pertaining to the drug issues. So, so far, these are the two issues that are quite frankly trending that I can recall.
Okay, we'll begin with the Finance Minister threat following this break. Stay tuned.
Grace. ASHFORD Garley, bureau number one, right? Okay.
The phrase, a new sheriff is in town, does not only belong to law enforcement. How about the introduction of Liberia's premier vodka, a quality and customized liquor for all occasions? Try the flavor of your choice. Hans Vodka, Hans Honey, Hans Bitter, and Hans Original Vodka. Hans Vodka has no hangover. That's why they say Papa drink Mama happy. Hans Vodka is sold in all stores, shops, supermarkets, and entertainment centers in Liberia. For wholesale, contact Hans Vodka at 0777 001114, 0777 000 979. We can also be reached via social media on Facebook and IG at Hans Vodka or www.hansvodka.com. In the United States, please contact Hans North America Incorporated at 610-543-9289, 484-888-1622, 484-755-8411. Hans Vodka is approved by the U.S. federal government. Hans Vodka brings out the real man in you.
I tell you in my boy, in my blood, every time when I stay on the block.
Okay, we're back. And folks, again, welcome to the show. Now, just before we touch on Minister towards threats, let us look at Rescue 1 and Rescue 2. That is of the Unity Party. And before that, I just want to say this. This is the bridge that connects, the bridge that reconciles, the bridge that unites. And you would never go wrong by being on the bridge. Others have already declared their support for either the ruling establishment or the opposition political leaders. You can clearly see that Spoon is for Unity Party and Joseph Boyka with Jeremiah Cohn. There's no if and and about it. The class reloaded is also for, and that's the Boyka. There's no if and and. You can clearly see, they come out and tell you these things. For the SKTV, you can see that they're for ANC in the comments. And for the closing argument, you can tell that they're for CDC and ANC, because when Stanton attacked Samuel Toy was trying to find a way to counter Stanton. So they went and heavily invested in in closing argument to the tune of 36 community radio stations in Liberia, and counting, you know. So Bridge is here. There's no political leader or ruling establishment would tell you that they support Bridge Radio. We have not, we don't have that kind of money because of the passion and because of the love for our country. We'll continue to do our best to educate and inform the Liberian people. Now, whether you're from the CDC, the ANC, the Unity Party, this platform is for Liberia and it's for Liberians. You're welcome on this platform. Now, your being on this platform is a privilege. It's not a right. So when we come here, we have to be respectful, little of profanity, and so forth and so on. Having said that, let me go to Pastor Addy. Pastor Addy, the name of Jeremiah Cohn has surfaced again, linking him into using his private clinic to get money from the government. According to what we read, Jeremiah Cohn in 2016 started receiving some assistance from the government to support the clinic that was built in central Liberia. Now, we're told the clinic was turned over to the government in 2019. So since 2016, as a representative and co-chair on the Ways and Finance Committee, this guy was getting money from his private clinic from the government. You care to respond?
Thank you. So, Ashford, the Central report that you are referencing, so let's do the math. The young man spent $2.5 million to build the 116-bedroom clinic. According to the Central report, he may have received an estimated $900,000 from government. But what the Central report failed to account for is the reality that this young man started the hospital in 2011 in honor of his mother and his daughter, because his daughter isn't well. So he built this hospital when he was a private citizen and eventually became elected. When he became elected, the hospital was concluded. He sold his Jackie Hotel, obtained finances from that, which he's explained to the public through evidence pictures of what happened and how this hospital is being sponsored and when it was turned over to the government. But here is the association or the implicity that, because he was in Ways and Means co-chair, so therefore funds were diverted to this hospital. Well, Sintal should have quite frankly done a more investigation through either the Ministry of Health to see whether or not this hospital was fully turned over. Sintal should have investigated this hospital to see whether or not this was facilitated or being turned over. So the one who alleges all of these criminal issues or suspicions that happened simply because of the fact that he was in government as co-chair for Ways and Means Committee. On the other end, Ashford, make no mistake, the gentleman, Mr. Maya May, was also a political opposition to Mr. Kuhn at the time when they were supporting Edith Gongolo. So it is not by coincidence that potentially this could be politically motivated against Mr. Kuhn, because at the time when he defeated Madame Gongolo, he was on the side of that camp. So make no mistake, it's potentially motivated by that report. Also, when you read that report, you will see that some due diligence were never done as far as interviews with the hospital, interviews with the journalists, interviews with the Senate to find out whether or not funds diverted. All of these issues are what we call due diligence. When you also look at that report, it tells you that the Fourth Estate has better credibility than religious institutions in the country. So there are certain discrepancies. When you read the report, you begin to scratch your head as to whether or not this is a credible report concerning the Honorable Jeremiah Cohn.
Do you know Jeremiah Cohn, or are you just saying what you've read or what you heard him say?
Well, the last time I listened to him, he spoke on Spoon Television. Photos were presented as to how this hospital was being sponsored, as well as his international efforts to bring foreign doctors to help support this hospital through his foundation that helps raise money to support this hospital and turning this hospital over to government. Make no mistake, the Honorable Darius Dillon just built a fantabulous, quote unquote, institution for the Liberian people to help rehabilitate folks on drug and alcohol, our brothers and sisters. So if the government of Liberia, which is publicly stated, that hospital can be, that facility can be turned over to government to support it in terms of functioning and sustainability, because he, as a senator, may not have the financial means to support this hospital. So as opposed to repudiating the Honorable Jeremiah Cohn, I think we should be celebrating his effort to give back to his county and the people of Liberia through his personal resources, and not demonize him for doing something good that bettered the country. Do the math: $2.5 million to build the hospital. Government funded this hospital with an estimated 900,000. Where is the profit?
So when did he turn the hospital over to the government?
It was believed to be in 2019.
2019. Why 2019 when the hospital was built in
No. He bought the land. He bought the land in 2011. He sold his Jackie Hotel in 2016, and construction started, completed, and eventually, with the support of his foundation, he saw that he couldn't even be able to support this hospital. And as a matter of fact, it is documented.
Is it also safe to say that the hospital was in operation in 2016?
Yes, it was in operation in 2016. And in fact, he asked the Ellen-led government for assistance to help sustain this hospital. And in the report I read, stated that Madam Sirleaf shared with him, her government shared that she can only support the hospital with drugs and fuel.
Why did it take him so long to turn the hospital over when the hospital was in fact in operation since 2016?
Well, Ashford, make no mistake, doing any type of NGO work in Liberia costs money. And as a private businessman, even though he did this for the benefit of his county and the people of Liberia, it's not an easy thing to sustain such an operation. That's a 116-bedroom hospital. Not to mention the fact that he's also supported schools in Nima County, like the J.W. Pearson School. We've had this conversation before, and it's definitely not cheap to run any operation in Liberia. I run an operation in Liberia where we take care of where my church takes care of girls off the streets, something you know about. I'm constantly raising money here to help support them, sponsors from all over to help sustain them. So it's not an easy thing to do these philanthropic work. You got to have money. And that is why the Honorable Darius Dillon, thank God for his effort to help our brothers and sisters regarded as Zogo. He took his personal resources to give back to the people of Montserrat County. But is he able to sustain it? If he starts to do what he needs to do, then they'll argue, oh, he's stealing government money. But the truth is, those operations aren't cheap to sustain. And make no mistake, senators can in their way ask for funding for allocation for government hospital. I think I read that one of the senators of Bunk County, her name is Rachel Flomo, I stand corrected on that. She also built a hospital and turned it over to the government. So I don't think these things are unusual in the context of politics and giving back to the people of Liberia.
Well, Coach Q, Reverend Ade is here telling us that Jeremiah Cohn built a hospital at a cost of $2.4 million United States dollars, and he turned it over to the citizens of his county for free. What is your take?
Well, again, thanks for this conversation. This is part of the problem. This is really, really important that we have these type of conversations in the open, right? So when you say this man's doing this philanthropic work of his daughter, you mentioned his daughter, you mentioned that he's bringing in doctors, you mentioned that he opened schools, and he couldn't somehow sustain this hospital, so he turned it over. There is a reason why we have rules, and structure put in place in government, right? When you're a member of the Ways and Means in the Senate, in the House, in the legislature, you don't get to do certain things just for the mere fact of the appearance of impropriety, right? I haven't read the report. I wish I knew we would have talked about this so I can brief myself on the report. But just listening to the explanations and, well, Darius Dillon did the same thing. Thank God for him. No, that's not how it works. We need to have objectivity. We need to have structure put in place to make sure that anything you're doing is on the up and up. When you don't do that and people can accuse you of taking government fund, that's not a good place to be, especially when you're a member of the Ways and Means Committee, right? So what you're saying is just take his word for it. And I listened to your question, Ashford. You ask the Reverend, how well does he know this man? Right? So you can stake your reputation on him. I'm not going to stick my reputation on Jeremiah Cone. Secondly, if you think about it, right, this man is handing over a hospital to our country. I think that's a pretty big deal, right? Why wasn't that on the news? Why wasn't that covered in public, right? When the Emirates Hospital was being opened, when we open a bridge, when we open a road, all those things are covered. Why wasn't it covered? The point I'm making is the mere appearance of impropriety shouldn't, if you're someone who is integrity driven, you don't do things like that. You don't do things to make it look like you are being corrupt. I can't give any details on this report. I haven't read the report, but it just sounds bad.
Thank you.
For someone who's in the legislature.
Thank you. Dr. Fisk.
I think it's disingenuous if you ask me. The reason why governments are instituted is to avoid arbitrariness. In other words, someone randomly decides to do something and selective about what they do. This guy's a president. I mean, I'm not in the boycott camp, but this guy's a presidential aspirant, right? The idea of auditing is something that the government has put aside a long time ago. Otherwise, they should have started the audit with Ellen. Possibly Ellen should have also audited Judy Bryant, and then they should have gone way back further. Okay, so we don't have that culture in the country. Okay, so Ellen wasn't audited up until now. If we say we're talking about stealing, let's try and start auditing Ellen and see how much she took for 12 years, because there's this speculation that Joseph Boyka took $30 million. How do we know? Okay, so there's no audit. Okay, so for me, it's just a smoke screen, okay, to try to discredit these guys, because has anyone audited Mr. Weah? Has there been an audit of his vice president to see how much millions of dollars she's taking? The president's wife just built some kind of whatever place, for me, I call it another handout. Instead of building factories, she go build some kind of retreat for I don't know what. So instead of creating jobs, she tried to encourage people to continue to be hopeless and helpless. Do we know how much that entailed? Or is it just the money that was given to Jeremiah Kuhn that's going to build Liberia? We need all of those resources to come back to where it's supposed to be, so that to benefit who is supposed to benefit, and that's the Liberian people. Now, I just want to wrap up by saying this. This is one of the reasons why I said, I mean, I'm now a Cummings man, but I think when I mentioned the JI ticket, that jobs and integrity, it fits Cummings better than Fixer 1 and Fixer 2. Because my understanding is that Ben and I used Fixer 1 and Fixer 2 in the past. So it's just a repeat of history and following after Joseph Boycott. But jobs and integrity is more specific. What it tells you is that this guy is a corporate guy. He's capable of creating jobs for Liberian people. And then it tells you that this guy, among all the other candidates, has good integrity. So why Cummings is even afraid of branding his ticket as jobs and integrity baffles me, especially if he's running with a relatively political novice like Charlene Bromsky. Okay, but long story short, let's not be hypocritical against Joseph Boakai. If we want to do an audit, let's do it across the board. Government is not supposed to be some kind of arbitrary cartel that is targeted at one group of individuals to the exclusion of others. Thank you.
Ashford, do you mind if I 30 seconds?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just want to caution the doctor on something that he said. When he talked about what about this person, there's this thing in logic called whataboutism. So we can always do that, right? We can always go back like, well, edit Doe, edit Ellen. I think we should deal with what we're dealing with. Okay. Now, should we be politically motivated in going after people? No, I don't think we should do that. But however, if we're going to speak integrity, let's shine the spotlight on where it needs to be shined on. Let's deal with that. If something else emerges, let's deal with that. Let's not be selective. However, let's not say, well, because this person has done it, so this person should do it. I think we hear that a lot.
Can I respond? Can I respond to him?
30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. Let's try not to be reactionary. Let's be a little proactive. That's what government is supposed to do. So let's not say the reason why we are going after Mr. Kuhn is because we've seen something. No, that's reactionary. That's unattainable when it comes to that's not how government function. Government is supposed to be proactive. That's how Western nations are successful. So let's forget about the political the philosophical implication for once. Okay, that's normative. Let's look at the empirical. The empirical is you have people, you have regimes that have taken place. You have even one that has not been audited. The proactive thing is to audit all of them. If you want to do it across the board. Otherwise, it becomes targeted, and it's not good for politics and for administrative continuity of government. It's not.
Okay, where is Lighty and Jay Rennie? I think they appeared briefly in the back end and suddenly disappeared. We hope that they can come in. Idatus, I know you disagree with the report from Sentad, according to you, but Jeremiah Kuhn played a very important role. He was co-chaired on Ways, Means, and Finance. Why it is true that you disagree with Sentad, the same Sentad report stated that there was more money allocated in the budget for the hospital with Jeremiah Kuhn as opposed to one of the hospitals in either in Maryland or in other parts of the country. What do you say to that?
Thank you. That is certainly a very good question. So that was the report that Central used to imply that there was more money allocated to the people of, to the hospital of Jeremiah Kuhn. But let's be very clear. There are more people in Nima County than people in Maryland. Could that be the reason? In terms of population and allocation of funding, it's possible. So, when I looked at that report, looking at the population of Maryland versus the population or the size of the hospital in Maryland and population, that may have been the reasons why. Senators can often allocate or, direct resources for budgetary allocation to their respective counties. And make no mistake that even in these United States of America, which my brother Peter tend to allude to often, there are some states that pay less taxes but get more government funding. That's just the reality, and that's the way government works. But this implicity that they are trying to suggest that because he was a member of the Ways and Means Committee, therefore he may have influenced more money into his hospital compared to the hospital in Maryland.
Not just a member.
He was the co-chair. He was the co-chair. He was the co-chair.
He was in the room. They were working the numbers. Come on now. This guy who just
no.
The hospital, $2.4 million United States dollars, right?
Right. So no. So don't forget now, 2.4 million United States dollars was his personal investment to build the hospital,
I understand.
Which was turned over in 2019.
According to you, he didn't win it. So he did it for free. Just for
no. So listen. So Jeremiah Kuhn has made a very public record to show any document. He was on, thanks to Spoon Network, he was on Spoon Network, and he's challenged the public to show one evidence that he directly received money. So are you implying that any senator, Ashford, who, like, for example, if you went home to run for Grand Jeddah County, but you decide to build a hospital, and then you decide to run for the Senate and you win, and you turn that hospital over, and that hospital is being funded by government, should people assume that you're getting money because you're in the Senate for the hospital? He's asked the public to bring record to prove that he received any money, other than the fact that this money goes directly to the hospital for the administration of the hospital. He didn't hide it. He stated in 2016, he even asked Madam Ellen Johnson Shirley for support. And what she said was, the government will help you with drugs, and the government will help you with fuel. So does that mean that when the government helped with drugs and fuel, that money went into his pocket? Let's be real about this. That's all I'm saying.
Coach Q.
Yeah. So again, let's go back to accountability. This is how governments run, I'm not sure what the Reverend is referencing when he says government money. Is he talking about more federal money or state money goes to state to states with lesser population? I don't get that. I'm not familiar with that. Maybe you can expound on that later. But what I am saying is, this is why we need to audit. This is why we need transparency. This is what we need, why we need accountability. So none of us will have to ever assume what could have happened. So when we are sitting here now talking about our nation and the future of our nation, we shouldn't be saying, well, he did this. Could this be? Could that be? We can all do that, right? We can assume and we can cast doubts on things, but we need to know. That's why auditing, I agree with Dr. Fix on this. That's why auditing is very, very important. Transparency and integrity is very important. But just to be sure, right? I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said this, right? You're not going to trust the best people in government. So therefore you need measures put in place to make sure people do what they're supposed to do. So let's not assume, because anyone who is supporting anyone can make excuses for their own devil. Let's not have a country like that. And if we are not doing that, maybe we'll have a better country where money that's supposed to be allocated for certain things go to what it's supposed to go to. As far as I stand, it doesn't look right, because I know integrity is not one thing that people think about when they think about the Liberian government. So let's just not sit here and say, well, he could have done this. He's helping charity. Look what Darius Dillon's doing. I don't think we should do that. I think we need facts. And I think that's the only way we'll move forward.
Okay, Jay Rennie, welcome. But just before you give your opening statement, I want to go back to Dr. Fisk. Well, Idatus is saying, yeah, he's downplaying the position that was held by Jeremiah Kuhn as the co-chair on Ways, Means, and Finance. He's telling us that he was just a member of the Ways, Means, and Finance Committee, and he went further to say, could it be that Nima County has more population than Maryland? Maybe that's why more money was allocated for Nima County. Dr. Fisk?
The thing is, when we heard of the Boyka Kuhn ticket, one of my first reactions was that, what are you guys coming to come and change? These guys have been part of the system. That's what I said. Okay, now it's coming up. But then who's pointing the finger? The same people who are corrupting the system as extension corruption that's going on as we speak. Okay, so it's like you pointing one finger at Jeremiah Kuhn, but you got 4 pointing back at you because you continue to be in the system and continue to corrupt the system. That's the problem. Okay, number one. Number two, look at the legislature. The legislature used statutory constitutional imperative to abrogate to themselves a salary that's bigger than the U.S. Congress. How do you, in a serious-minded country, how do you have a salary that's bigger? So don't just by that standard, don't we see that there's already corruption? Do you need any kind of special audit? When the people use the very same constitution as a tool against their own people to subjugate the people, hide behind statutory laws. Okay, then how do we then single out only Jeremiah Kuhn? It's a hypocrisy. The system is rotten. We need someone with integrity to clean the system up. Clean it from top to bottom. The legislature pay should be a percentage of the GDP so that it reflects the reality of what Liberians are going through on a daily basis. That is not what is happening. And it is only happening because those guys hamstrung Ellen under the likes of Edwin Snow. Okay, those guys kept on carrying the salary to some extent. I think they even wanted to put pension in the thing. It was so embarrassing that even their own members decided to stop it. So how come all of a sudden this corruption is ongoing, and now we say, okay, let's take Jeremiah Kunto setting up as a piñata. We're going to beat him up only because he's vice presidential candidate. I'm not for Joseph Boakai, so I'm speaking at both sides of the mouth. I'm not for Joseph Boakai, but I hate the hypocrisy, the political hypocrisy against him when it's being carried out by the same people that are desecrating the socio-economic environment of Liberia. It makes no sense. That's window washing, and people need to be careful and perspective on what is happening.
Mr. Rennie Dapo, welcome to the show, my brother. And ladies and gentlemen, Rennie Dapo is not a member of any political party, but he supports George Weah, and he thinks George Weah is by far the best president of Liberia.
Yes, and thank you for that clarification. Let me say hi because I just got in. I got a lot of stuff that I'm doing here, so I'm using my second terminal here. You rightly put it. I did campaign for President Weah in 2017, and he elected. We were the first batch of folks online, and we did a very good job. And what I'm doing today for him are two things. One, whatever he promised the people in 2017 that he's executing. For example, he promised roads. I am from River G. I have not seen the ASHFORD that is currently in our place because I grew up there. I am also a Liberian that understands that Bapulu County, as part of the disjointed Lofa County, is now having an Emory hospital. Those are things that were not in place, and these are infrastructure that he promised. I support him on that. Recently, he let go the Minister of Post and Telecommunication, and I told Mr. Weah, was it based on performance or was it based on party politics? And I disagree with him on that. So I am one of the Liberians who stand for the truth. And one reason is because I'm not looking for a job in the country. I'd rather be here at Walmart checking every one of you guys' receipt to make sure that the item you purchased were really the item that you actually wanted to get, by making sure the receipt that you present to me is accurate. The reason I'm saying that is there are people who will cave in looking at the truth, and they want to be what we describe in leadership as agreeable people. I am a person who disagree, because as a disagree person, when it comes to negotiation, I stand a better chance because of my stand on things. So hi to every one of you guys. Again, it is a pleasure, actually, to be here with the panelists here. Thank you.
Okay, and again, this platform is not tied to any political establishment, whether here or in Liberia. The presence of everyone on this platform, it is a privilege, and we ask that we speak professionally, elude of profanity on this platform. We should be respectful of our fellow panelists, and that's all we ask. Having said that, before you came, we were discussing about Jeremiah Combs' gesture in building a hospital in Ganta Nema County for the sole purpose of the citizens and the county as well. He spent 2.4 million United States dollars of his own money, and the hospital became functional in 2016 with government assistance in the budget, but he turned the hospital over in 2019. And Jeremiah Combs on record that he didn't get a dime from the government for his personal use. Idatus Adu, who is the panelist that just said that, and he said he didn't do anything wrong. And I think he built a hospital for the love of this county. Number one, number two, he has a daughter that has an issue, and he wanted that hospital to cater to the needs of every child that is challenged. And he brought in professional doctors from other parts of the world that work at that hospital free of charge. What is your take? He's been accused of getting money from the government, and that he lied to the people about a main intention of building the hospital, with him serving as co-chair on the Ways Finance Committee.
Yes, Ashford, thank you so much. This question for me is very historical. You will remember, I will take you guys back in time from 1926 to 1980. Firestone land was sold to the United States, and the United States promised to give Liberia $280 million from 1926 to 1980. Nothing has been accounted for that money, but the U.S. does have that history. Today, we are seeing the same game being played, different time, different players, but the same country that is still living in the same system. The sad thing about it is Jeremiah Cohn is no different from the school of guys in the house. Senate, from my understanding, are making between 12 to 15,000. If we take it at 15,000, by the time they leave their first term in office, they will be running away with, I think, $1.6 million. That is on an annual salary of 15,000 a month. Now, how did he accrue such a money? I don't know where he has any organization or he went abroad and collected some money. I don't know how he got that money, but it just goes to show that the change that Jeremiah Kuhn is advocating for, just by you looking at that, it is absolutely wrong. And it is very sad for Joseph Walker, who claimed to be in power for 45 years. This man served under the under the Togo government, the dual government. He should be able to understand what are the current challenges in the country and why we are the way we are. And vetting people are things. Jeremiah Kuhn did not raise any money. Jeremiah Kuhn did not provide any publicity on the hospital. Redefining the way we're supposed to do things in our country. The Senate are not there to construct. They don't have the technical background. They don't have the technical expertise. They are only in Morovia, should be advocating for what are considered as their focus area. If Jeremiah Kuhn is focused on hospital, if he's focused on education, health, he should be advocating that that project be decentralized at the county level. But if you want to go into that, I see that as a political opportunity rather than an opportunity for the people. So when my brother Reverend Adus come here, or Ade, let me just call him Ade, when he come to defend Jeremiah Kuhn, you asking your question. And by the way, I was listening in the background while I was trying to log in. You did ask a very important question, and that is whether he knows Jeremiah Kuhn. And to factor that question into two parts, does he know the man professionally or does he know the man personally? Because when you talk about reference, we look at character reference and we look at professional reference. And I think in the two, Reverend Ade really doesn't know who Jeremiah Kuhn is, even from the political observation that we carry out. And I would say this, front page newspaper, as you can see here, actually, it says that Senator Jeremiah Kuhn accused of encouraging Guineans to cross over to Nima County to participate in a by-election. That is some form of suffering money. I don't know, but that investigation was never done. Mr. Kuhn never came out. Again, Mr. Kuhn is here again in the Daily Observer newspaper, where he is accused. I mean, he threatened a gentleman over a $6,000 debt that he owed a gentleman. So if this guy is owing people around and trying to build hospital, what kind of character is he? Do you think, Reverend, are they really understand who Jeremiah Kuhn is? I'm not going to speak to Reverend Ade defense, but what I would say is Jeremiah Kuhn is in no position to tell anyone that he's coming for a change. This is the guy who sat with the Ways and Means Committee and agree with the president agenda that I support. All right, irrespective of his standing. So when he go to Joseph Boyka, what difference is he going to make? Jeremiah Kuhn is nothing but a reprocessed, resold guy from CDC who is going to do nothing but to destroy his own image. And I think it's a very bad choice that that Joseph Boyka made, and that our president is so relaxed.
Thank you, Ray.
Not worry about that. Lastly, this is a man who struggled to win that senatorial seat because he's very unpopular with the people of Nima County. Thank you, Ashford.
Well, with that, I think I will go to Idatus added. And of course, I know some of you are saying you don't know where he got his money from. And according to Coach, he didn't tell the world, or he didn't tell Liberians that he was opening up this hospital. But to his defense, before the Reverend comes in, I watched one of the videos where he started off living on his own at age 12, sleeping in a canoe, living with people, and just doing business from a very young age, and then in Nima,
Well, actually, there's no accountability for that business. Therefore, that one of the reason how we Stanton Witherspoon today, Stanton Witherspoon can say all these things. Accountability is something. If you want to prove yourself to be somebody, actually, we live in the 21st century now. We must be able to have financial integrity.
So,
Today,
can you
hold
allow
on,
Ashford
I
Garley?
mean, I just put on my instance. Sorry, I'll put myself on.
And he went further to say he got a contract with the UN that came in and built the building. He built a building, and they leased the building for him, and that's how he was able to earn his money. It was also a hotel or motel in Banga that he sold to help him to construct the hospital. But it had to come in as he clarified some of these things or allegations against the guy.
Right. So, as well, I just want to say thank you for introducing a prelude to how Mr. Jeremiah Kun acquired his money before petitioned by the people of Nima to run as a representative and later on as a senator. So my two very esteemed colleagues stated very clearly that they haven't read anything about this gentleman, but yet they want to make a comment without knowing his story. They probably never watched the interview on Spoon Television when the public had opportunity to question him. The money you're talking about the young man that he owes, he's already answered that question on Spoon, that the young man money has been available at the hospital, and he didn't owe him. The hospital, he did business with the hospital, and the hospital had his funds available to him. Even the journalist that interviewed both he and the gentleman was even upset with the gentleman who goes around claiming that Jeremiah Kun owes him money when he has not gone to pick up his money. I mean, it's been over a year now. But this political stunt that this gentleman keeps playing, and he stated that, oh, my father died because I didn't have my money. The facts are very clear. Journalists have gone to interview him, and I'm in fact disappointed. Mr. Jeremiah Kun even called the journalist's name, who expressed dissatisfaction with the fact that he's proliferating these lies on different stations, but has yet not gone to pick up his money. On the issue of his financial acquisition, I like to encourage you, my brother, to go and read about this gentleman, and you will see clearly that he is an iconic Liberian story. A man that came out of poverty, very humble beginning, grew up in Nima County, went to school there, and then graduated from Christian high school in Grand Bassa County. Suffered during the war, had to find his parents, sold medications in the bucket, sold gasoline. He was tabate, and eventually became a successful businessman to the construction of gas stations and building the Jackie Hospital in honor of his daughter and his mother, Geraldine. So all of these facts are there.
Not Jackie Hospital.
The E&J Hospital in honor of his mother and daughter. So the story is there, but I can certainly understand the political trauma that most Liberians have had. Everybody not everybody, but most individuals who have tend to work in government acquire their wealth through government. So a success story like Jeremiah Kun certainly raised eyebrow because we aren't used to seeing an independent Liberian as young as us, 45 years old, to be that successful.
Okay. I'll hold you there, Reverend. Let me bring in Coach Q.
Yeah, so thanks for that. First of all, I want the audience to pay attention and pick up on something, right? There are a lot of what we call logical fallacies when you're doing arguments that the Reverend is using, right? He's doing a lot of appealing to emotions. He would talk about his daughter being sick, how he brings in doctors to help people, how this man slept in the street. A lot of appealing to emotions, right? Most Liberians and people only do that as a logical fallacy because it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about the impropriety of using money as from his role that he plays in our government and what it looks like and what he's been accused of. Everything else doesn't matter. He could be Jesus. Let's give him that. Right? Let's grant him he was the most righteous person until this. We're talking about the facts of the case. Secondly, I never said I didn't know about this man. What we said was we didn't read the report. Totally different than say we don't know anything about this man. So you can't put words in our mouths and say we said it. Then you have to be caught on that. And that's not fair. I wouldn't do that to you. Please don't do that to me. Couple of last things, right? I think it was Randy who talked about, it was probably the doctor, about how much Liberian legislatures are getting paid. The legislatures in the United States with GDP far greater than now, in the trillions of dollars, right? They get paid at an upper middle class range, right? They get paid around 167, 170, around there. So that's about 3 times what the average American makes. So for our legislatures in Liberia, we're not as industrialized as these people. What we need to do is do the same. Let's copy them at the very least. As a matter of fact, let's give them one even better. Pay them 4 times what the average Liberian makes. It still would not amount to 15,000 US dollars a month. It would probably amount to about $4,000 a month, if that. Okay, so we are paying these people some exorbitant prices for doing nothing. Lastly, Randy says something that is very, very important. Randy's one of the people that I really used to like and respect. When I say used to, because I don't see him anymore. So it doesn't mean I don't respect him anymore. But it's very, very important. The jobs of legislatures are not to be philanthropists. Their job is to advocate for their counties or where they come from, for their people, and assist those people in sharing in the national resources, right? Creating jobs, creating policies that uplift the entire country, especially as a senator. So to hear, oh, this guy did this, he put a fuel pump here, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. Not just for your county, but you're not supposed to be a philanthropist. You're supposed to be putting policies and laws in place to uplift our country.
Thank you. Dr. Face will come in. Letty Bruce Roberts will conclude with Reverend Added and then move to the next segment. Dr. Fisk.
Okay. Yeah. So before I even talk about this, I just want to use 2 minutes of 1 minute to just call Mr. Randy Dapple to a situation that happened last week in my absence. You said that I had just disgraced myself, and all doctors are not equal. Okay. And I think that was very disingenuous. You could have said it to my face when I was still available. And as far as having a doctorate degree, and you say all doctors are not equal, I agree, because I had graduated summa cum with a doctorate. And besides graduating summa cum, I actually topped my doctorate class at the University of Arizona. The records are there. The last time I ever went to school after a doctorate degree was at Georgetown. Last I checked, Georgetown is a Harvard League university. And I have a 4.0 from there. The records are there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the records are there. Okay. I have a bachelor's degree in political science and history, a master's degree in communication. So I'm not guessing when I come on this show, and my doctorate is solid. My patients will tell you. So let me get to the issue. As far as this whole thing is concerned, we need standard when it comes to politics. Okay. Given what is at stake. If we decide that the standard is that everyone who's running in these elections need to be audited, then let them be audited. Okay. But this selective thing that's skewing negatively against the Boakai team, it doesn't smell good. Okay. And the existential corruption that's ongoing, Mr. Hui, we talk about legislators is recommending 5 times. The average pay of Liberians is what? $100, $150. At most, 200. People don't even make 200 times 5. That's how much? 5 times 2, 8. That's 800. So if you, long story short, these guys shouldn't be making above 1,000, roughly $1,500 a month. So that's a complete mockery of what's happening, which reinforces what I said initially, that the pay should be a portion of the GDP to reflect the reality of what's happening in the country. So all of these corruptions are ongoing. And then we say, okay, the only person, let's just take Jeremiah Kun because he's running to be vice president. The other people are running to be president too. Let's audit everyone. Mr. Weah wants a second term. Let's audit Mr. Weah to know what Mr. Weah has now as he's going into his second term. What's wrong with that? So we're not doing all of these things and we're only looking at Jeremiah Kun. That's disingenuous. I'm not a Waka man, but if we want to do things logically and systematically, that's what it requires. Otherwise, that's just negative selective. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts. Please unmute your device.
How are you?
Good. Better than good as always.
Yeah. Sorry, trying to get into the groove of things. Anyway, yes, I've been listening to you guys, and While it's true, I read some of the article, but not in its entirety. But again, I do agree that having public servants do philanthropic work such as humongous as building a 16-bedroom hospital, I would want to know where that money came from. And he's, of course, he's, as Dr. Fitz said, he's not the only one. You have the vice president, current vice president, running her own NGO or philanthropic organization. These people have their hands in the cookie in the coffers of our government. So anything you do, there's always going to be somebody with a side eye because it just doesn't look right. Now, if you're in your private business, doing when you're out of government and doing private business, even though we'll still be looking at you some kind of way, like where did you get all that money? It makes a little more sense. So while it's true, this gentleman has been on the CDC team, and he comes from the CDC side to join with Ambassador Boycott. So yeah, he still got duties there. They're not going to start talking about him until we get into the nitty gritty. So yes, 2.5 million by a citizen in Liberia, but they have a problem with a person who worked out of the country who has no blemish of corruption coming into the country to make a difference and say I won't even take pay when you have someone who's at the hem of the government coffers saying he's building hospital. No, I don't find that honest, and I don't care what you write up until we have an audit trail. There's some kind of there's something funny about that. We have the current healthcare lady, the person in charge of our hospitals. She gets medicine. She's been accused of that. So we're talking about a country that is not upright, and you expect us to believe that this gentleman took his own money and then he said, "Okay, here, government, take the money. Take the hospital." Nah, Mr. Garley, if you believe that, I would sell you the breach right across
Okay.
my house.
Reverend Adam,
Thank you.
Can I come in with something, please?
no, what's your turn, please? Reverend Adam will take us home on this segment, and then the next segment will begin with Randy Dapple, which has to do with Samuel Toy. Go ahead, Reverend.
Thank you, Ashford. So what I'm hearing is a whole lot of speculation. A whole lot of speculation that I don't believe that he was able to acquire his own money. So the speculation is that because he was elected by the people of Nima as a representative and then senator, and he started the construction of this hospital with his personal resources from his business activities and acumen, then he becomes corrupt. So that guilt by speculation, then one can also traffic in what is being published in the media about other candidates. But I wouldn't do that. So, Mr. Dapo and Mr. Peter asked me, how well do I know this man? Well, I'm sure when Mr. Dapo went to Mr. Cummings and then was told that he was no longer a fit for the campaign, I'm sure he went there believing that he knew Mr. Cummings. I'm sure Mr. Peter must have went to school with Mr. Cummings, that he will question that if I as a Reverend will put my reputation or credibility behind Mr. Cohn. So if that is the politics, then, I would like to see the evidence that they've known Mr. Cummings for over 30 years, or 20 years before they gave their support to him, or they are in much proximity to speak on his issues concerning his political ambition. But I don't want to play those politics because I think it's beneath me. We want to speak to the substance of the matter. And Mr. Cohn has made public how he got his money, and the records are there. So the one who alleges needs to come with proof that he stole money from government to build his hospital. And the facts are very clear. He, as a gentleman that was working in Nima County, he built his reputation and was petitioned by the people. And not just hospitals that he built, he assisted with the expansion of schools and markets in Nima County before becoming senator. So his goodwill and his nature didn't happen because he got in government. It started before government. So let's be very clear about that.
Yeah.
Well, folks,
Finally,
Mr.
Ashford, finally, finally, as I close, finally, Ash, for 30 seconds. Logical fallacy, sounds very beautiful intellectually, physiologically appealing, but logical fallacy, it's a mischaracterization of everything I stated. What I shared here was fact. Is it not a fact that Mr. Kuhn had a hotel called the Jackie Hotel that he sold to build the hospital? Fact number one. Is it a fact that Mr. Kuhn had a gas station that generated funds to help him build the hospital? Fact number two. Is it a fact that Jeremiah Kuhn was an humble businessman that sold gas, built his hospital, sold medicine, had pharmacies, and built material stores? Yes, it's a fact. That's not a logical fallacy. He used his personal resources in the genesis of his career to build the hospital and do other things in Nema. Hence, was encouraged by the people of Nema to run as a representative before becoming senator against the will of Mr. Prince Johnson, who opposed him at the time.
Letty Brooks Roberts, you wanted to say
Yes,
something.
I did. Mr. Garley and Pastor Ade, we thank you for your list of accomplishments. And while those are all great things, he may have accomplished some of those things, and we applaud him because for our country, when you're on a trajectory, people hail you, and that's all good. But a hospital, I haven't seen the hospital. I would like to see the hospital, but I know, and we all know, one man cannot build a hospital. He either has outside help, but he chooses not to bring those people out. But he alone could not have built a 16-bedroom hospital in Liberia. And like I said, let's see the audit trail. Let's see trail.
Okay, folks, if you're just joining us, this is Ashford Garley Live on British Radio Africa. This program comes on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays on British Radio Africa via YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. The next voice you hear will be that of Rennie Dapple as we talk about finance minister threat to hold heads of agencies' salary if no reports are given. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Renzo, G Grace. Hems vocal, Liberia number one vocal, Liberia number one, right? Okay.
The phrase, a new sheriff is in town, does not only belong to law enforcement. How about the introduction of Liberia's premier vodka, a quality and customized liquor for all occasions? Try the flavor of your choice. Ham's Vodka, Ham's Honey, Ham's Bitter, and Ham's Original Vodka. Ham's Vodka has no hangover. That's why they say Papa drink Mama happy. Ham's Vodka is sold in all stores, shops, supermarkets, and entertainment centers in Liberia. For wholesale, contact Ham's Vodka at 0777 001114, 0777 000-979. We can also be reached via social media on Facebook and IG at Ham's Vodka or www.hansvodka.com. In the United States, please contact Hans North America Incorporated at 610-543-9289, 484-888-1622, 484-755-8411. Hans Vodka is approved by the U.S. federal government. Hans Vodka brings out the real man in you.
I tell you, in my boy, in my blood.
And that's where we're back. And folks, if you're just joining us, we'd love to say a big thanks to all of you for taking up time of your schedule just to be part of this our show tonight. I think I will make some adjustment instead of just going to Rennie. I want to perhaps take one or two calls and see how the audience felt about what was discussed earlier. The number to call is 267-240-5295, 267-240-5295. And we have a caller on the line. Hello, caller.
Hello, Mr. Garley. This is Elvis from Minnesota. Big hello to your panelists. Hope you guys had a good afternoon. Well, let me talk to Reverend Adam for a second, because you really don't know who Jeremiah Kuhn is. There's an old saying: if your house don't sell you, the street won't buy you. Henry Costa, when he said those things, he didn't just make it out of whole club. He went and did research in Jeremiah's own background, own backyard. I know Jeremiah Coon. I have in-laws that live there right now, and people who come to town to my family house in town from Ganta, from Gompa. Jeremiah Coon Hospital. I told you this story before, but there's also another little girl. What is he? He's involved in is human harvesting, where you carry these little kids to the hospital, take their organs. They're still beating hearts. They're still functioning liver. And then he sells them on the black market. That's how he gets most of his money. People in Ganta knows this. He sells this. And he also is engaged in ritualistic, sacrifices. The little boy that went to the hospital, his parents came from a village inside Sacré-Pied. They came down. They said, "Oh, your son died in a hospital, in Jeremiah Coon Hospital." Young boy, I think he was about 16 or 15 years old.
Elvis?
Yeah.
Elvis, why it is true that we are not supportive of Jeremiah Coon? I think when you make such an allegation, you should, buttress that with facts, and you can't just
and that's the thing, Mr. Garland. This is a community knowledge. This is not something that was on the news in Liberia nationwide. But people that live in that community will tell you this. I have relatives, in-laws who will tell you this story because the general will say, "Yeah, that's true." They know the family and they know the village where the family came from. I just can't get the village name, but I'll get more information on this. So this is not their say. So when people telling you, they say that where there's smoke, there's fire. People are telling you these stories because they live they're in that communities and they know what happened, and it happened in his hospital. And he settled with that little boy's family. Ask people in Ghana today, they will tell you that story. So when Henry Costa made that allegation, it was like they said, he went to that in that community and he got that information.
You mentioned Costa. You mentioned Costa. You mentioned Costa. Costa came out and apologized to Jeremiah Coon for the outburst. Okay? But anyway, thanks for calling. We have a 310 number. The last 4 digits of your number is 1661. Please tell us your name.
Yeah, my name is John. How are you doing?
I'm better than good. Go ahead and make your point, please.
Okay, not to buttress the call like that. Can you see you disagree to the Malabra first? You don't even have the fact. You say, "I will research." You guys should stop this. It will benefit you to come. You know the core of the attack. The actual story. But let me stop there. Let me go to Jay Randy. Randy sees he knows everything. He can't stick to the point. Just be circulating around with misleading information. You need to go and do your research. Randy, don't feel that you are so educated than your others, panelists. Anywhere you go, you behave like that. You need to compose yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay, we have a 267 number. The last 4 digits, 3270. Please tell us your name.
Yeah, Mr. Alfred, good afternoon. I want to say good afternoon to the panelists.
Okay, tell us your name, please.
Yeah, my name is Hussein, calling from PA.
Okay, you live on.
Yeah, my question goes to the Reverend Instigator. My question has to do with the hospital that we're talking about, that Mr. Coon built in Liberia. Mr. Alfred, as a young Liberian, seeing our political leaders how easy to obtain wealth in Liberia, like Dr. James said, that, like for example, like our senators, you look at the money they make, and you look at civil servant making maybe 150, police officer making 125, and looking at just that, the money senators make, just looking at that even simplifies corruption to the higher level. But looking at men that sat on the Ways and Means budget for years, and today people telling young people, looking at the suffering of Liberians, a man that look at his own money, build a hospital, and he just woke up today and decided to turn the hospital to government without getting anything. How possible is that? Can the Reverend really explain that to me so I can understand it as a layman? Because I'm still confused up to now.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, folks, back to reality, back to base. And at this time, we're going to bring on Rennie Dapple. Rennie, the finance minister threatens to hold heads of agencies' salaries if no reports are given. What is your take on this as we begin this segment?
Yes, before I go to that, I just want to say one or two things here quickly here, and that goes to Dr. Fix. What I said, I didn't say it because he was in here. He chose to leave based on his schedule. That is up to him. But when I said that not all doctorate degree are created equal, I was not talking about the summa cum laude. I'm not talking about the university. I'm talking about the style of presentation. They're having the dignity for each other, the profanity, the word, the choice of word he used. And when I was in communication school, we were always told that whenever you say something, go by and look at it again. I would encourage him to go back and look at how he expressed himself. And it was based on that interaction that I said, I don't think all PhD or doctorate degree are created equal. For me, historically Black colleges and university are my number one, because when you look at things from a racial standpoint, the historically Black university are established to compete. So I would rather go to a historically Black college and university to come as someone like Kamala Harris, who is part of the Howard University. But that was not the point I'm speaking of. As an engineer, I don't look at what colleges offer, because there are people who came from Yale, Harvard, that are yet to get the job that they were ever dreaming of. So it's not something that I based on. So I was just looking at the behavior at that time. With that being said, I also wanted to quickly touch on Rabbi Ade. I think Ade had just proven himself that he doesn't know people well. When I left the ANC, it was not because of I couldn't campaign. I left because the ANC folks don't understand the history that I bring with me. Mr. Cummings had decided not to reach to a location that I know that will make him to struggle, and he's not going to win the election. So that was a misinformation, and this information he just spread. So that even speaks further to him not knowing Jeremiah Kuhn very well. So he just proving that because I'm the one who left ANC, and I know the reason why I left ANC.
So you were a member of the ANC?
No, I was not a member. I was invited to be a consultant.
Okay.
And when I went to...
You were also a consultant with CDC in 2017, correct?
Yes, I was a consultant with CDC. So, I mean, just to follow on that question quickly here, when I met Mr. Cummings, I told Mr. Cummings where I came from. I want to deal with him directly. I'm not going to deal with no third party because of the lesson I learned. But apparently, they live in the U.S., but they don't understand what lesson learned mean. And, now, to come to what is going on here, all right, I would say this quickly here. In the United States, we have the Office of Accountability, all right? The Office of Accountability. If we don't have that in Liberia, then Jeremiah Kuhn, anybody can get away with that. So I think that's what we need to be focusing on, the system and not the individual, because all these people we see today are all symptoms of the lack of failure. So if anybody tell me they don't have the General Accountability Office in Liberia, boo. But I'm just concerned about Kuhn because he want to be part of the vice president structure of Mr. Borka, and coming with that kind of deathbed, that's not good for me. Now, Minister Tour is trying to do something that I've long been advocating for, and I will applaud him for that. Recent one, when President William Awatoba took office as a Totman, he decided to establish the Ministry of Planning and Economic Affairs. Ministry of Planning and Economic Affairs was established for two reasons. One, to take census every 10 years and to project the economic position of our country. And the third responsibility was they were ensuring that every agency and ministry come up with a strategic plan. And that plan would determine whether you will get your performance fiscal budget. And that money was given after every quarter. So if Mr. Tua is taking that measure, he's in the right time. Is the timing right? I don't know. But I think it's something that he should have done a long time ago, because we all on the platform here. We work before we get our pay. We don't get our pay before we go work. So I think that standard is right, except that the timing is what I'm looking at. Is it in the good gesture? Well, that's something, and this is where I would say, when I told President we are in 2017 of December 29, that President we are, you need to make sure that all your ministers, director sit before you and draw up a 3 to 4 year vision plan focusing on the strategic area. Had he done so today, Mr. Tua will be giving a performance review rather than a performance requirement. I will leave it as that.
I will bring in Dr. Fisk.
Thank you very much. So let me respond to you, Randy, before addressing the finance minister. The first thing, my behavior has nothing to do with my degree. Okay. The second thing, you have a lot of people who are very educated, and because of how they are treated, they do what's necessary to protect himself is the first law of nature is the law of self-preservation. Okay, Paul Gigami, Samora Machel, Nelson Mandela. These are very educated people. Okay, but when you decide to abrogate to yourself as a Liberian to tell me that I'm a half citizen because I'm from the Congo lineage, then I have to, I did not interrupt you, then I have to tell you that that policy is stupid. What is stupid? Stupid is not demonstrating intelligence on the issue. Okay, you talk about journalism. One of the top journalists at MSNBC, Lawrence O'Donnell, the last word. Most of Trump policies, you know how he called them on the air? Stupid. Okay, so after 200 years of living in Liberia, we speak the same language. You can tell me that you can call yourself Loma Man, but before I call myself as belonging to the Congo tribe, I must say I'm Congo Basso. It don't make any sense. That's the highest level of bigotry. If you were white, I would say racism. Okay? So as a result of that, you can't tell me that if you are trying to challenge my existence as a human being, then I should be quiet about it. That one at that point has nothing to do with degree. Go and ask Paul Kigami. Okay? So let me address the issue of the finance minister. As far as I'm concerned, you said something similar to what I would say. In research, it's called framework. Whenever people produce a research work, okay, they are writing within a particular framework, within a particular context. So I'm saying this to say, so let's transpose that to what could potentially happen in government. What it means is that every minister needs to have an agenda. Okay, in Ellen, they call it the deliverables. Okay, and she was also looking for benchmark. In other words, have you been able to achieve your deliverables? Okay, so how do you have directors and assistant ministers and all of those things, all of those people writing policies without a framework to write reports? The framework for the report is supposed to be the agenda for each minister. So then you are writing your report to say how much you've been able to do to make that agenda possible. So if there's no framework, then of course you are asking the people to walk in the dark, and that's unrealistic. Okay, so it sounds beautiful. It's like when Ellen came to power, decided to do right sizing and downsizing, and didn't set proper parameters. And people were just, if someone, a minister approached again, she said no, Isaka, he said, well, I downsize you. Okay, so it sounds good on paper to say, okay, well, we're not going to do Baku, but is what he's trying to propose? Is it profound? Has he established the premise so that people will be able to report the way how they should report rather than how he wants them to report? Thank you.
Actually, can I get me one correction? Actually,
Randy, please. This is not how things work. Randy, you're used to doing your show all by yourself. This is not how things work. But you will come when your turn reaches, please.
I'm taking something every time. Every time I come in,
Randy,
you all be holding me.
No, that's not fair, Randy. Please.
Right. Okay.
Coach Q.
All right.
Yeah, so I'll be brief, and Randy, you can come in. Couple of things. Looking at Simon Twel's action, first of all, there is a distinction between what makes a villain and a hero a hero. Let me explain. Are you willing to punch up, or are you punching down? So when Simon Twel is telling people that his subordinates, he's going to withhold their livelihood unless they come up with some accountability measures, right? To me, that's cowardice. Here's why. It's easy to hold those people accountable. If this has been his language all throughout his tenure, I would respect that. If he has been advocating for people to be more transparent, this is the man with the mop up, 25 mil mop up. Simon Twel, shut up. With all due respect. You are doing it because you can. And that is not okay. That's bullying. He's in a government marred with improprieties, with corruption. And he's trying to hold accountable people who need the paycheck, people who haven't been paid for months in many cases, right? So it's not what he's doing. It's not only is it too little too late, But to me, he's doing it for public perception. And that's cowardly again, because I think it's all for a show. If he really meant what he's saying, he would have this would have been who he was. He would have practiced this a long time ago. Going back to what we're talking about, accountability, transparency. This is how the government works, because that's not those people's money. They are simply managers of our affairs. They're ran to manage our country and our children's future. You cannot be playing games with people's lives. So I want to close by saying all the personal jabs that is being taken back and forth, even right now, as subtle as it might be, there's no room, there's no need for that. Let's look at the facts and the details of what we're talking about, and let's just focus on that. And you guys can have the personal jabs and whatever later on. But I think what San Antonio is doing is it's kind of sad, actually, because it's too little too late.
Stay on Samatua Idatu's adding.
Well, this is just indicative of the facts. This government thinks the Liberian people aren't paying attention. He made a statement in the midst of the European Union and government officials who were signing 4 agreements of 80 million euros, which is 88 million US dollars. So I don't know if he thought making this statement supposed to impress the European Union delegates that were there when they were signing this. After 5 years, going on 6 years, pending elections, and you're now telling Liberian people that you'll be holding your lieutenants accountable for reporting, when in fact you have not given the Senate a budgetary performance that they've asked for in a very long time. So such a hypocrisy is simply indicative of gangsterism, a government of con artists who wants to run a country based on, words of rhetoric and thinking Liberians aren't paying attention. It just tells us that for the last 5 years, you've not been doing your job, no accountability. So who have you been running? Where have our money been going? So then it's very much true. That is why we cannot account for $100 million for the road fund, and I mean for the RRA road. And that is why we cannot account for the road fund adequately, and that is why we certainly cannot account for the 800,000 US dollars that was supposed to go to the hospital in Margibi County, and certainly cannot account for monies that's supposed to go to hospitals based on the U.S. ambassador's statements. I couldn't agree with him more. It's time to hold people very, very much accountable. Let's begin with him and let him tell us what happened to Matthew Innes, what happened to the auditors. In that very statement, he said, our auditors are having difficulty auditing the ministries. Well, the last time I checked, 4 auditors died in an attempt to audit and be transparent of government's ministry. Matthew Innes, Gifty Lama, Albert Peters. Innocent lives were lost at the behest potentially of this government. So for Samuel Tua now to tell us, Liberians, that he's going to start holding his lieutenants accountable for reporting on budgetary spending is laughable. Thank you.
Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts, then we'll circle back to Jay Rainey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Garley. I will yield my time to Mr. Randy Doppel. Let him talk.
Mr. Doppel?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to inform Dr. Fricks that I did not say he was a half Liberian. I think he all spoke. And I would encourage him to go back and watch that video, because I think he is misrepresenting me here. Honest to what I said, and I still say that I didn't say that. What I was trying to establish, based on your question, Mr. Garley, is the fact that where do we see the Congo and the native? And I was trying to set the record straight that we were wrong from the beginning, all right? And we were wrong after the 133 years, and we need to find a common ground. And it was where team went down south. Now, when it comes to leadership, personality, degrees, well, as someone who is a leader and play a very significant role, I don't see myself based on degree. I see myself based on the platform of the leadership tech. So when I see people speaking, I instantly just erupt into myself and say, hey, is he speaking as a leader? Because as a leader, when you speak out there, especially with diversity of people that look up to you, there are certain choices of what you don't use no matter what happened. But again, I mean, it's like the phrase, but I just reacted to say, I mean, the way he spoke And when I said not all doctorate degree are created equal, I was seeing his expression based on a leader who went on the platform or wherever he or she is should represent that style of leadership. But again, I just want to say I did not see him as half a human being. This is a hot button issue. This is a red meat issue that had caused our country to where we are today. And when we discussing it, I think we all should discuss it with a sense of change, because it is our country and we are living today as some of the Liberians that people know around here and want to leave a legacy here. When it comes to Minnesota, I mean, there is something called distribution of blames. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, in my opinion, people may disagree with me or not, is solely and wholly responsible for what is happening. Samuel Doe, Charles Taylor took power. They knew the importance of the Ministry of Planning and Economic Affairs. That was an independent institution by itself, actually. Ellen came and decapacitated that institution and just umbrella it on the Ministry of Finance. So it has to deal with the financial aspect, and at the same time, he has to execute the role of the Ministry of Finance, Planning Economic Affairs, which is responsible to act for these performance program. It is in the law that created the Ministry of Planning Economic Affairs that every minister should come up with their 2 to 3 year vision plan. If that was something that was never done initially, it's because of how the country was structured. The system of governance was structured on Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. So I'm not here to write off Samuel Toer. I hear Reverend Ade talking about people getting missing. When the 13-year-old girl was raped in Liberia, I didn't see those who are advocating today. When Harry Green got killed, the report came and they said it was okay. Nobody argued. When Robert said he broke down the cow, nobody argued. And that kind of gave me the sense as a leader. Are people reacting based on what they agree to and disagree based on what they don't agree with because it doesn't defend them? Let me say this here. Every sector in our country where you get nominated by the president, and of course you are confirmed by the Senate, in which Mr. Jeremiah Kun is part of, if the institution, justice, police, and other institutions are not doing their job, I think we should educate our Liberian brothers and sisters to call on their representative and say, look, full auditor died. What has happened to the police investigation? Today, we had Chalu, who is dead, and people are still playing with that. But I'm not hearing the opposition putting pressure to say, let's go and get this lady, let the police director. We see, according to what I'm hearing, the justice minister is conflicting the role of the national police. And if some opposition are enjoying that because they see that as something that is in their defense. So I would say sector leaders should be held accountable if something goes wrong, and let's see what the accountability are. If they cannot reach that accountability, let's call on our house to challenge these people because they have the right to say this person is unfit to be a governmental material. We have 3 branches of government, but if we keep attacking the executive, then I see that as a political witch hunt and not a transparent structural leadership where everybody got to play their role. I will leave it as that.
Thank you. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we want to continue. I think it was Dr. Fisk, then was supposed to come in, right?
Yeah, I'm supposed to come in.
Yeah, go ahead, Doc. Go ahead.
Okay, so Randy, we have to contextualize the basis upon which you made a derogatory statement against me in my absence. We're having a discussion pertaining to, as you call it, native versus Congo. For me, that doesn't exist. Every Liberian is a native born of that country. So how does this Congo versus native suffice? In other words, people are still looking at other Liberians as being not full citizens. That's why I say half citizen. Okay, and it doesn't make logical sense because every Liberian, by definition, Liberian, since the arrival of the settlers have been over there for over 200 years. How do you then call another person not a native of the country. When you say someone is not a native born of the country, although they are, what you've done is that you have questioned their citizenship. And that's exactly what you did. We've all been trying to find solution here, and I've taken the position that in order to solve that problem, make all Liberians define us within the cultural context that we understand. In Liberia, everybody is identified according to a tribe. Okay, and if we do it that way and say people from the Congo tribe, then of course you will not have George we are calling his country giant, because there are supposed to be some other Liberians who are not native born of the country. Then all the manipulation goes away. The other day I was looking at the commentaries on this platform, and somebody asked, I need somebody to speak Congo. And I replied to the person, I said, Congo is English. Okay. It's the same way how people don't know that Mandingos are citizens because they are not able to pinpoint a county that Mandingos are associated with. So yes, when you challenge my nativity as a Liberian, then you are telling me that I'm a half Liberian, and I'm going to come at you hard because
that's your interpretation.
You're saying you have equal birthright like you. Okay, yeah, I have equal birthright just like you, and you are not more native, you are not more indigenous to Liberia than I am, even though I come from the Congo tribe.
You're missing the
That's
point.
what I said. No, I didn't miss your point, and I was not talking.
I think it would be better. It would be better.
I was not talking. I was not. Yeah, they can go back. Perhaps maybe you did not understand.
I'm not going to go back and forth.
Please don't talk over.
Maybe you did not understand the profoundness of what you were saying, because sometimes people.
I clearly understand. I clearly understand what I said.
Rennie, would
you I forgot it. I will not sit here
Rennie,
and allow.
You have your time to respond to him.
Yeah,
allow him to
this
speak?
Conversation is not going to be between
you should allow him to speak, please, Randy.
The conversation is not going to be between Dr. Fred and myself, because when you say anything and mention me, I'm going to come back too.
Listen,
so when
your time comes, you can respond. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. All right, good. I like that.
Please continue.
I like that. Let me take note.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, when you start calling other people like you started Congo versus native, then it becomes a problem for Liberia. We can't continue to hold that burden on ourselves as a people for over 200 years. It makes no sense. You were born in Liberia, I was born in Liberia, but because my name Fisk and your name is Dapo, so you're more Liberian than me. What sense does it make? It makes no sense. So when you challenge my nativity, my indigenousness, only because I'm from the Congo lineage, then it becomes a problem.
Thank you.
It has nothing to do with degree.
Thank you, Face. I will bring in Idachi Sadi. And then after that, the last segment will be about job creation, and we'll begin with J. Randy Addy. J. Randy Dapple.
It's okay, Ashford. Ashford is okay, you know. I could make him an Addy. That's fine. Ashford, I am just, we're asking one another to be objective, but when it comes to speaking truth to power, then we become a bit selective. Here we are, after almost 5 years of governance, our finance minister is telling us that it's time to hold his lieutenants accountable when he has not been an example. But Mr. Dabo justifies his actions and yet pivots to the legislators as opposed to not holding the executive accountable, when in fact the executive is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the government. So let's be very clear. It's a little too late. After almost 5.5 years, our president is telling us that he didn't know that his civil servants were making below the minimum wage, whilst at the same time he's built 48 houses. He takes, 47 days out of the country, followed by another 11 days. Cannot account for $25 million of Liberian people money, $100 million gone missing, road funds inexcusable. But yet, Mr. Dapo claims that it's all the fault of the past administration because they came and amalgamated the ministries, and therefore they are responsible for why Samuel Tuer is unable to do his audit. Well, then you shouldn't have run for the office. If every time you have to look in the view mirror, and you're supposed to be a party that came to correct the ills of the Liberian people. But it's certainly very clear that the president who instituted the PAPD, the Propo agenda, has only worked for him alone in the context of the mass wealth he's acquired over the years, him and his lieutenants. It's quite astounding. And for anybody not to look at that, and be critical objectively about our president, George Weah, which we do not hate at all, for his mismanagement of our public resources, becomes very difficult to process this conversation for change. And let's be very clear, Liberia needs change, and change it must have in the persons of of Joseph and Jeremiah. And that's why we're advocating this ticket. We need men and not boys to lead. We need people with experience and not practitioners or who would come and practice on the job, because it's important that we change the trajectory of our country. Thank you.
Okay.
Ashford, can I just interject for really quickly? I think it's really funny that Dr. Addy is talking about accountability when he just sat here and justified how Jeremiah Cone has been on the up and up, how Jeremiah Cone earned his wealth, how Jeremiah Cone handed over a hospital, even though there's no public record of it. So going back to Joseph Boyka in 1980, from 1985 to 1980 to 1985, how the general accountant office in the United States, pushed by Ted Kennedy, talked about how when Joseph Boyka led the agriculture ministry, the LPMC, he was corrupt. You cannot advocate and say you want change for better when you're advocating for people who have shown corruption in the past. So that to me, that's so funny that you're saying that. I think you're being selected. You're going after George Weah because of political reasons. Randy, I wanted to respond to this. So you cannot say, well, the little girl, Matthew Enos, Harry Reeves. Again, we're going back to whataboutism, right? How about those people? When people in all of this are being killed and people are being killed extrajudicially, we can't say what about. We need to enforce laws. Again, people are not just coming after the executive. That is their precise role of the executive. They are the law enforcement agency in the country, the ultimate law enforcement agency in the country. So when these things are not being solved, it falls on the lap of the president. So he is to be held accountable. I just wanted to add that.
Okay. Well, folks, now as we conclude tonight, before we go on the last segment, let us talk about job creation for a minute. Coach Q Cummings is in the news, and he talked about his first 100 days. Economy going to be high on his agenda. He want to put money in the pockets of the people. He talked about this big bowl of rice, and that the Fisk is on the year, day in, day out. All he talks about is job creation. He wants to see factories built in Liberia. Job creation. Rennie Dapple, let us talk about job creation for a minute. George Weah has been in power now more than 5 years.
Yes, Ashford. Let me just say this to Dr. Frisch. The history of our country started with the American Liberian coming and creating a class system that today we see the cause.
We just changed topic though.
Yes, but I still maintain, and I told Ashford that whenever Dr. Frisch says something, I have to respond. That is how it's going to be on this platform. Okay, so
really?
Yes.
So now you're going to change our rules.
Yeah, I want to Ashford set the rules. Then, of course, because I'm not telling Ashford how to do his job, but I will not let anything go with my name on it. That's what I stand for. I'm always here to defend myself. All right. So that when Dr. Frisch say I'm trying to say is I have him, you have Liberian. That's not what I was saying from the get-go when that question was asked. I'm saying that there have been some level of inequality in terms of leadership in our country. Yes, there have been some level of inequality starting from the day the country got independent, for a party that led the country for 133 years, where the native people were not so well engaged with the opportunity. I just mentioned Sonny during the course of the show that 280 million from 1926 to 1980 was sent out there. So what I'm trying to make everyone to understand, especially the new generation, there have been some inequality in our system of leadership that gave some people the opportunity. And if Dr. Frisch or anyone feel that should not be said, that is what I'm saying, and that is my point here. We must admit Did Samuel Kanye make some error? Absolutely. And then we need to address that as well. And then we can move on. It's not me saying, oh, you're not this, you're not that. Now, when it comes to job creation, Ashford, you see, it's a shame to see someone like Alexander Cummings who live in a structured environment in the United States. Cummings is a shame to anyone who ever worked in the structure of the United States. This man went to Liberia. Everything he said, he has someone sort of on everything he has said. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over. They gave this man because they did not give him political opportunity in terms of wanting to become president. He sat in our country for 6 years without even establishing one business. I'm not talking about his school because his school is so expensive. I'm not talking about his NGO because he's getting tax money in return here when he does his taxes and atomize things. I'm talking about creating job opportunity. For example, you have Getty in the country. Jetty is over there creating job in the central part of Liberia. But Cummings decided to sit down and say nothing. All he talked about is, I'm going to create job. But this is a man that never created any job from the beginning. When you work for a structured institution, all right, such as Coca-Cola, these things are determined based on the profit, and they don't come from the vice president. It comes from having meeting with stakeholders, looking at the cash flow and looking at the profit. I'm in that same situation today. My VP don't come to me and say, I created a job. No. So when he comes out and say, we're going to create a job, how is he going to create a job when he doesn't even have the experience of working in the public sector the private sector by himself, except for a structured environment? How can he create job when he had not even started to even think about creating job? This man wouldn't come and speak and speak and speak, and there's nothing sensible that he says out there. And it's a shame because Cummings will not sit to talk to any Liberian that will walk away and say, you know what, I learned something good from Cummings. Cummings said something today. This is a man who I interacted with, Ashford. This guy, he and I sat down in my home office here, and I asked him series of questions. And he was so blunt that he couldn't even realize. When I met him in Florida again, I spoke to him, and I just concluded
Mr. Garley, I would like to interrupt. We're here to talk about a subject matter.
And the
going
subject matter is
personal. It's not.
Mrs. Roberts, Mr. Cummings talked about job creation. He talked about the economy in his first 100 days.
But what does that have to do with his
please, Mrs. Roberts? I think he's on point. Please allow him to speak.
Thank you, Ashford. And just to learn quickly here. So everything Mr. Cummings has said since he came to Liberian politics had you nothing, but he had just humiliated himself from time to time, even when you look at his decision. So what I can say in regards to this, Cummings is not prepared to be president because he comes with no experience, and his desperation today is a clear indication of the mistake he's making. He brought in an inexperienced person. He would have rather take that chance to negotiate with Teo Gongolo to say, you know what, let me get Teo to see what we can do. But that is up to his inability to think as a former VP rather than a politician who listens to people who don't have no experience. So it is a shame. And so he's not going to create no job. He's just saying things out there for people to believe in Ashford. But
okay,
we'll see.
Okay, job creation. I'll bring in Dr. Fisk, and I'm pretty sure Coach Q will want to come into after Dr. Fisk. Dr. Fisk.
Yeah, so Ashford, before I speak, there's something that's happening. Randy, I was talking, he interrupted me. And after that, I think I had 2 seconds, and then you like, oh, Dr. Fisk, that's it. So I never had.
I thought you completed your thoughts.
No, I did not. I was interrupted by him multiple times.
Okay. My apologies.
Okay,
go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so Mr. Randy is here confusing history. The people who came in 1820 were not Americans, so you can call them American Liberians. Okay, I mentioned to you the Emancipation Declaration, and then you also mentioned the 14th Amendment, which came after the Emancipation Declaration. So those two political tools should tell you that those people who came in 1820 were not Americans, okay? They were repatriated Africans free men of color. They were not Americans. So did they introduce a system of discrimination? Yes, they did. No one is arguing against that. But did we see bloodshed and killings after 1980? We saw that. But how many people coming after you and saying because you belong to a particular a tribe, you should not identify yourself as who you are only because your forefathers killed people during the war? How many? I don't see it happening in Liberia. The only people I see it happening with are people of the Congo tribe. Oh, your people discriminated against us. As the end of, because of that, even after 200 years, we come after your children until Jesus Christ comes. It's stupid. It don't make any sense. So that's what I've said. Even somebody wrote say, "Oh, not everybody born is a native born." Oh, how do you call when someone is born into a country of the same race? How do you call them? They are a native born of that country. Let's forget about this whole Congo discussion, what have you. Common sense. When you're born into a country, you're a native born of that country. So I'm not even dignifying that by continually explaining something that's too clear to understand. If you don't understand that the people in 1820 who came were not citizens, that's up to you. But the records are the Emancipation Declaration and the 14th Amendment. Okay, so now let's talk about job creation. You said, Mr. Cole, you had all kind of stuff to say about Mr. Cummings. Question, is Liberia poor? Liberia is not poor. Liberia has been chronically mismanaged. There's a difference. Poor means lack. You don't have. That's where poverty comes in. Liberia has. Liberia has over 200 inches of rainfall. Liberia has fertile, one of the most fertile soil. The question is because of mismanagement, starting with Toba, because Toba should not have approved the PL 480 for the importation of rice into Liberia, when in fact rice could be grown in the country. They could have built factories. That's what I always talk about. But what did Mr. Weah do? He said pro-poor agenda, which presupposes that the country is poor. So he missed it because he didn't know what he was doing. Okay. And as a result of instituting a pro-poor agenda, he understood it within the context of getting employment all the time to go and beg. How would you be begging when you have a rich country? It doesn't make any sense. That's another stupid policy. Okay. So if you want to point finger at Mr. Cummings, and I've always said when it comes to Cummings, I said Mr. Cummings is a corporate person. So I don't understand why, even if he's not introducing jobs in Liberia, politics, somebody from CDC came here and said politics is optics. Let him be seen to be doing that. And I also talk about the CI ticket, JI ticket, jobs and integrity. I don't know why he's shying away from everything that has to do with job creation and going to education and the rest of it. But job creation, that's his thing. Opon is building soccer fields because why? That is his brand. What is the brand of Cummings? Okay, so getting back to what Randy Dapo said, if you are accusing Mr. Cummings of not understanding, then the first person that needs to be accused is Mr. George Weah, because Liberia is not poor, Liberia is mismanaged. And he hasn't concentrated on the major problem, the chronic problem of Liberia, and that's job creation. And I've always said on this platform, the best way to address job creation is to create massive factories that will lead to decentralization of Monrovia, because people will go in those areas to go to get factory jobs. Okay, and the issue has never been about reconciliation. We can discuss that in more details, because if you look at the numbers, even if Liberia, the first thing, if I was president of Liberia, I would declare rice a national security commodity and use 3 years to phase out importation of rice into that country. These are economic policies that we're not hearing people talk about, because why? These things bring jobs. Instead of doing that, successive presidents come and these foolish Indian and Lebanese people tell them, say, you get $5 on a bag of rice, and at the end of the day, they shortchange the rest of the nation in the interest of their own pockets. And that's not fine. Liberia needs jobs, and that should be the number one agenda on every politician who's running to be president at this time. Thank you.
Well, we got 10 minutes to be out of here. And Armstrong Jagba, I don't know when you want to appear with you to tell us about the rest farm that you have in Liberia. At this time, job creation, Cummings has been attacked, and I'm pretty sure Coach Q wants to have his say.
Coach Q. So again, thanks for the question. Obviously, when Randy talks, you hear a person who has no idea how nations are built. When he said things like Cummings don't even have government experience, but then he said Tawan Gunglo. First of all, let me educate you a little bit, Randy. Here's how a separation of power, democratic country democratic republic works. If you work in the legislative branch, there is nothing you can do there that will prepare you for the executive. If you work in the executive, there is nothing there that will prepare you for the judiciary. So what you were saying is, Mr. Cummings, because he has no public sector experience, therefore he couldn't possibly know how to create jobs. That's nonsensical. That's a non sequitur. It doesn't even flow. Working in the government means nothing, right? Your George Weah that you support now, Randy, tell me his experience, his public sector experience, and how is that serving him now? What did he know about creating jobs? How many jobs did he create before he became president? What is his economic worldview? What is his social economic worldview? Just explain that to us. Where can we go to hear him articulate that? You can't. Here's what Mr. Cummings knows. He understands how countries are built. Mr. Cummings has taken a first world company, Fortune 500 company, and brought it to a third world country. Forgive my third word and first word.
That's terrible language.
Third world country again.
Yeah, that's terrible language. That's developed and underdeveloped. That's how you should speak.
All right, but stop correcting me. I didn't interrupt you. But so he's been able to do that. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Cummings understands, just like other leaders, right? Let's look at Singapore. And let's start with South Korea. They took a military dictatorship that structured the system, that made them one of the richest countries in the world now. He didn't work in the private sector. He didn't create no jobs, but he was able to put the system in place. That's how it works. And you have to understand how that works. Mr. Cummings has a foolproof plan to create jobs in the country because he understands the structure of how organizations are supposed to work. We don't need politicians in Liberia. We need managers. Mr. Cummings, yes, did talk about food security. That's one of the biggest pieces of his job creation platform. Okay, his plan talked about that. Randy, you have for a fact because you've talked about it time after time. 30 hectares of land just dedicated to rice. 15 dedicated to cassava. He's doing that in the export economy. He talked about shovel-ready projects. He talks about, and he has planned. If I had time, I'll go through the list of things.
We don't have time now. You got.
Okay, I understand that. But here's what I wanted to say. He does not need to work in government to understand how to run a country. A country is simply a bureaucracy. Mr. Cummings is an expert bureaucrat. So if you think that working in government is the only place that a person deals in politics, you're sadly mistaken. You don't understand how the world works. That's not true. Mr. Cummings does not need to work in the executive to understand. He has executive experience without working in the government. And as a matter of fact, not just a government, the Liberian government, a non-functioning government, a government who has never worked for the people. Mr. Cummings understands how a functioning system works. That's why he'll be able to deliver. His plan is crystal clear to anyone who reads it. The plan that he's following is the exact same plan as country as Rwanda has followed. His mercantilism is what England has used, Singapore has used. Okay, his sovereign wealth fund strategy is what countries like Saudi Arabia is using. So for those of us who have studied nations development, when we hear him speak, we know that he's extremely informed on how this is organized and functions. And this is how, when you start, he knows how to start from the bottoms up. And he's talked about it and explained it ad nauseum. Anywhere he has gone, he has opened himself to question from everyone until you can get George Weah on a platform where ordinary Liberian like myself can ask him questions and he's able to articulate his plan, please do not compare those two. Please do not support a person who has nothing to hold towards what Mr. Cummings has accomplished or what he's able to do.
Coach Q, we'll go to Mrs. Roberts, then Idatus will come in. Following that, we'll take closing statements, and then we can go home tonight. Mrs. Roberts, please.
Yes. You know, it's interesting to hear Mr. Dapo belittle someone who, as Coach Q just said, can stay there, stand up or sit on an interview, tell you his whys and his hows. He sits there and tell you infrastructure is the most important. And those are things that we need to get together. We can't create jobs if we don't have electricity. We can't create jobs if we don't have good roads. We can't create jobs if we don't have good health care. And on and on. So those are some of his hows and whys and what he's going to do, rather. So the specific way he's going to do the job, give him the opportunity, and he will tell you what he can do. But you cannot expect him to give you his blueprint and then you'll go running with it. Just as he told you, he would increase the budget, and then the very Samuel 12 running the next day to do it, and then the next time he comes back, we have a shortfall. The next time we got surplus, and still people are not paid properly or on time. So in regards to his plan that he was talking Samuel 12, again, you have had this opportunity for this long. When you come into a position, that's when you pull out the whip to show people what you're working with and what is expected of you. You don't do it at the end of your road. So when we're talking about someone who has the potential to change things around, give someone who has not done it and who you know has a clear plan, or he has worked in a place where you have structure, and that's what matters. At least when you know someone who has structure, you hope that they will implement the structure. We have 12 here up and down, driving trucks, and nothing against that. But you take him and throw him into the lion's den to run a country's budget when he has not practiced. So at least he has practiced on how to run a bureaucracy. Thank you.
And I think it was.
Joshua, just one last thing, please.
Hold on a minute. Hold on. Mrs. Robert, I think it was unfair to bring by the tour situation, because when you were asked to speak, you used your time to Randy. So you taking us backwards.
Okay. No, so you're trying to say that people haven't been tying things together here? No, I'm tying it into his capabilities and the lack of.
What I'm saying, when you brought his name in, you were asked to speak and you decided not to speak on it. That's what I'm saying. What
10 seconds.
Seconds are cute, and then we'll go to Idatus. Following that,
real quick. By the way, there's gonna be a pie in a lot of these people's faces after this election period is over. Mr. Cummings has created many jobs in Liberia. For political reasons, he hasn't come out and said it. He's said that too. He said it out in the public. We know for a fact. I'm stating my reputation on it. He's created a lot of jobs. He supports a lot of businesses in Liberia. He just doesn't come out and say it because he doesn't want those people targeted by a rogue government. That's a fact.
Thank you. Idatus?
Ashford, I truly want to say thank you for the question, job creation. And that is why the Honorable Boyka has put forth a very simple acronym, ARREST, agriculture, one of the greatest ways to create jobs in our country. Who else can you actually use to create jobs? Who else can you actually use to create jobs other than the one who is competent enough to facilitate the policy around job creation? One of the biggest job creation mechanisms and opportunity that can be created in Liberia is agriculture. And that is why the Honorable Joseph Boyka is best suited by experience and expertise to deliver this reality. While it is true that others have, the neophytes have come to put forth ideas concerning job creation, he's been doing job creation, but just has not been at the helm of power. How has he done it? Everywhere he's worked, he's demonstrated great viability, great expertise from LPMC, where we begin to export coffee and cocoa until the war came. Where has he worked? As agriculture minister, both as minister and technical advisor, where he evaluated the Green Revolution in collaboration with AMSCO. So this is someone who is seasoned in job creation and has very much put forth what will become that reality for the Liberian people. He's looking at road construction. He didn't wait to get in government. Joseph Boyka facilitated the construction of a 7-mile road in Wasanga, thus creating jobs there. Joseph Boyka also helped to collaborate with the Danish institution through the Federation of the Liberian Youth to build a school of 150 students and a clinic. He participated in the electrification of Foyakama, northwestern Liberia. So we are talking about someone who is seasoned in job creation, which will come to him as a piece of cake based on his vision for the country. He's looked at Liberia. His several decades of serving the nation has made him best suited for this opportunity to lead Liberians. He's looking at road construction and development, something Liberia lacks, been implemented by this government, who has not brought not one concession to the company, but is relying on past negotiated deals of the Ellen-led government, which money they've quite frankly squandered in the construction of decent roads for Liberia. And he's looking at the issue of education, the building of our human capacity. And that is why he's well vested in education. And when you look at his investment via his foundation, you will see how heavily vested he is in education, supporting people through his foundation. So we're talking about a seasoned statesman who was just lied on that he was corrupt at agriculture ministry, something that is absolutely false. Mr. Dapo also stated that Liberia was messed up since 1847 because he received $200 million. That report he was attempting to quote was referencing the Samuel K. Doe government, who received $200 million from 1980 to 1986. Let me land, my brother, from 1980 to 1986. So the truth is very clear. All of these people who are currently vying for the presidency of Liberia, we have George Weah, who has a failed legacy. He has failed tremendously on all of his implementations, predominantly. And then we have Mr. Cummings. You know, I still love Mr. Cummings. I think he's a great man, and he's quite frankly interested in Liberia. But if Liberians were to make a choice, would you rather someone who's done the job or someone who's coming to practice on the job? Thank you.
Reverend Added, you know, we can't just go to a closing statement when you come and say things that are far from the truth in terms of the man you support, Joseph Yuma Boycott. So, I mean, at this point, I will bring on J. Rennie Dapo.
What is the example of things far from the truth? You can't leave that statement out there, Mr. Garley. Give me an example. What are the things far from the truth?
You talk about job creation as it relates to Mr. Boycott. You talk about a development that he did in Lofa County, right?
Is that a lie? Have you read about that?
Reading about it is one thing. Have you can you point to what he did? Can you go to Lofa?
I sent you the video, Mr. Garley. I sent you the video. Do your audience the fair service to play the video now.
You did not send me the video, Reverend.
I sent you the video, Mr. Garley. Next time, play it for them to see, so your audience can see.
Don't comment and tell the world that you sent me.
Mr. Garley, I sent you the video. My reputation is on the line. Next segment, play the video I sent you, so that you can see what is there.
Where do you send the video?
Come on, Mr. Garley, don't do that to me. Should I send it again to you?
Okay, please send it again.
I sent it to your WhatsApp. I sent it to your WhatsApp, Mr. Garley. So next section, my reputation is on the line. Let's play the video next section, so your audience can see it, because right now you don't have time.
I clearly didn't see any video from you, Reverend Addy.
Okay, no problem, Mr. Garley. I'll send you the video again.
Okay, please.
Of the school in Foya and the clinic he built.
Okay. Now, we want to go to Dapo. I know Dapo will speak, and then of course, Coach Q will come out. Not Coach Q. Dr. Fisk will come out as well if Letty doesn't have anything. Following Q's comment, then we can have closing statement. Dapo.
Yes, thank you. I think I am the central target here, so I appreciate that. I love to be in the midst of those who are defeated in 2017. Even though I'm not campaigning for Mr. Weah, but Mr. Garley, I can tell you that by the end of October the 10th, Cummings will be wiping down his defeat, because that's something I already projected from last year, that he's not going to win anything. Now, I really admire everyone making the noise here tonight, but let me say this here. I think, Dr. Frisch, you need to do more reading, because when you say there were no skirmishes or any type of revolt between 1850 to 1920. There were revolt by the indigenous people. You got to do your due diligence, my brother. And those who return to Liberia, they are called American Liberians. That's how they are called. And they are called, or article as African American who return / American Liberians. You can check this out. And if you want, I can send you all the documentary for you to see, Dr. First. So I will encourage you to send me a link. You know my Facebook is J Randy. You can find me. Or I can find you if you go by Dr. Fresh. I will send you all the documentation from Library of Congress, University of Stanford. The history are there. Now, by you saying because you are not citizen, it means that you cannot be called American Liberian. That is far from the truth. But I will rest that case, and I hope that one of these days, ASHFORD GARLEY will just have a duo between you and myself, and that is voluntary, to provide evidence. Because, like I did say, I had tons of information here that I will provide to ASHFORD, and the documentation will speak for itself. We'll just look at it, and then we'll discuss it from what we see, and with our bare eyes. Now, with that being said, I feel sorry for my brother, Coach. You on the losing side. Comey is nothing but a very incompetent individual who has proven himself to be nothing but a desperate individual who has made several mistakes since he started. Nothing accurate. Out of the 6 years Comey has spent over in Liberia, nothing concrete he has done that has drawn anybody's attention. And everything he continued to do is nothing but desperation. Comey's weakness is desperation. You spoke about him. I interacted with Comey. I sat with Comey. There are things that I cannot say yet because as a professional person, I cannot review everything yet. But I know Comey's strength and it's limited. His weakness is high, and there's nothing he has to offer for the people of Liberia. For Joseph Boakai, he is an obsolete politician who is living in contemporary politics that he doesn't understand. And I don't blame Reverend Ade because Reverend Ade want to be part of the politics, but his decision is absolutely wrong. He doesn't understand what he's talking about. He doesn't know the characteristics of these people. Joseph Boakai had worked in the government structure for 45 years. And you want to tell us that video you were sent to ASHFORD rather than you pointing at things that Joseph Boakai has done? This man has been a natural failure. He has been so inconsistent with himself. This is a man who has a medical problem. He fell down, went to EAW hospital. Reverend, you are a man of God. This man want to be president. General Buhari spent 9 months in Nigeria. Do you understand what I mean by case study? Joseph Boakai is a liability.
Rennie, just hold 1 minute, please.
Right.
Just for the record, Reverend Ade, this is the first time I'm seeing this video on my WhatsApp, and you just sent it to me tonight because I went through my previous conversation where you had never seen this video. You just sent it to me tonight, just for the record. Continue.
Thank you. So Reverend Ade, all right. Joseph Boakai was recently admitted to the hospital. He came here to attend to his medical condition. And as a public official, it is my right to ask for any public official, including President Weah, medical record. It needs to be presented to the public because to determine his overall functional capacity for the job, we are not here to buy a pig in the bear. You have said a lot of things about Coon, but what about Joseph Boakai's health? Is he ready to take on the office? Is he able to do the job? Normally, Kanga said he will sit down in Lofa County and they will campaign. Are they, Reverend? You are not the one that are going to be making decisions. Joseph Boakai, as a candidate, need to come up and speak to the Liberian people. But it just goes to show that he is very incompetent and it is not ready for the task. Just stop pushing that old man because he is already obsolete. So, ASHFORD, these guys here who are supporting Boakai or Cummings, they will come back and tell you, say the election was rigged. George Weah today signed, I think, an $80 million with the European Union that is going to foster more infrastructure. Under the Weah administration, we see Jetty is trying to open up a process industry. Since 1847, it was only Firestone, but now we have other folks coming in. Roads are being built because they're going to get opportunity. Comey is from Maryland, but there's no one in Maryland that will tell you that Comey has even opened up something. Speaking about Joe Weah's accomplishment, Weah had stores when he was in the soccer world. There are businesses that are closing down today. So it's no different if the businesses doesn't exist today. He did put people to job. When we are lost in 2011, he had an opportunity to put many Liberians to work. Just because they didn't give him that political opportunity, it doesn't mean that he was not able to help. Kwame is an individual who believed that he must get something from the Liberian people before he gave the people something.
Thank you, Rennie.
This guy had proven to be just a guy who was fortunate to be in the structure of a country that you and myself live. We know when to train. We know when to get to go to work. He's out there on his own. There's nothing Cummings can do right now.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Fisk.
I thought I was next.
No, Dr. Fisk.
Yeah. Okay. So, Mr. Rennie Dapo talked about Stanton, library, and all kinds of stuff. But there's no law that supersedes the U.S. Constitution. The 14th Amendment is a very short piece of legislation. I'm just reading the first paragraph, section 1. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law. Prior to this time, the reason why is just like the amendment that was created to make women equal in this country. Prior to this time, there was question pertaining to Black citizenship. That was the essence of the Civil War in the United States of America. So it doesn't make any sense to say people who came 1820, that's 40 years before the 14th Amendment, were citizens. If they were not citizens, you cannot call them American Liberians. You cannot do so. Even though the historical documents say so, the historical documents can have fallacies that need to be corrected. That's why Western nations are great, because people say things and other people go and research those things and debunk them and come up with new theories. That is the essence of academic research. But I mean, you can shake your head all you want. I understand that, and people within my caliber understand exactly what I'm saying. So let me move forward. Second, Coach, much different deference to you, but third world, first world, second world, third world. It puts people on tiers, which is why Western nations, understanding that, decided to eliminate second world. There's no second world. Why do they have third world? Okay, if you want to talk about nations that are developed and underdeveloped, that's what it is. But if you talk about first world, second world, third world, then it becomes more than just development. Then they talk about human capacity. So that's what I'm saying. It's better to use a word that doesn't give the impression that you are less of a race than any other person, because third world is actually used to describe Black and brown people and the cultures in which they live. Okay. And let's talk about whether it's possible to know someone. Yeah, you can know someone, you can know the political, you can know the private, you can know everything about them through research. If you're one, I can challenge you. I can do a research on Jeremiah Kuhn. You guys would think that I've always lived with Jeremiah Kuhn, because that's the essence of research. So you don't need to know someone personally by speaking with them to be able to know exactly their professional output or their private lifestyle. That is why you have collateral information. You can reach out to other people. You can reach out to places he's worked. You can reach out to family members and all that kind of stuff. And you can put together a dossier on Kuhn that would tell you exactly who he is. So that's possible. When it comes to jobs, people keep arguing, oh, we need to build road first. We have feeder roads, okay? So most factories that were built in the West did not need roads before factories were built. People already had communities of farming, and factories were built within those communities to harness what was farmed. What's the relevance of that? You empower farmers. Farmers become money makers. And what can you do? We have toll roads in America, for instance. Toll, T-O-L-L. Most of the roads are constructed because you want to understand at the end of the day, you need money to construct roads. How do you get money if you're not infusing money into the economy? Then you have to go and borrow. Okay, so instead of developing a policy that leads us to a huge look at within 10 years' time, the US government gave $200 million. Do the calculation. Liberia has a population of 2 million. Stop rice importation. Let's just start with one commodity. Stop rice importation. Do a calculation where you're spending at least $50 a month on a bag of rice with a population of 2 million. How much are you talking about? That's over $500 million on a yearly basis. Why is it people can't see that math and say, okay, we can then redirect 200 million into the construction of roads? That's my argument. But people said, no, let's go and credit money from the West to build roads before we build factories. Meanwhile, you have communities of people all up across Liberia planting rice and all of those things. What they don't have is the capacity to harness these things and reach them to the market. Instead of bringing rice all the way to Monrovia, you can build factory in Lofa and supply Lofa people with rice. You can build factory in Maryland and do the same thing for people. Before you know it, all across Liberia, the country has become self-sufficient and is generating income through job creation. That's what I'm talking about. So I think I've been able to address all these issues, and I hope when it comes time to make last statement, I'll be able to make my last statement.
I don't think we'll have time for last statement. I'll bring in Coach Q.
Yeah, so let me go quickly. I know the time has been exhausted. You try to tell me there's not already rice in Lofa where we have food security. Joseph Barca is from Lofa. You do know that, right? So they must have food security. Anyway, Randy, when you speak, obviously you haven't studied nations and how nations are built. Again, I will say what I said earlier. Mercantilism. Mr. Cummings understands how you support businesses. Those businesses grow the country. You provide them with expert trainings. You provide them with resources. You provide them with tax breaks. That's how it's built. That's how other countries are built. When you start doing that, understanding how other people built their country through mercantilism, through sovereign wealth fund, those strategies, then you can say what you're saying. Secondly, it is absolutely laughable for you to think that you support a person like George Weah and you're going to put him on the same table as Alexander Cummings to debate any issues that have to do with the world. We would love that. Why don't you start advocating for that so we don't have this back and forth debate so we can prove it? That's all I care about. Let's show facts, right? Facts. Put them on the table with George Weah and let them debate how nations are built or what should be happening. To you, Mr. Addy, Joseph Boycott is a seasoned job creator. Joseph Boycott was there when Ellen Johnson couldn't create jobs. Joseph Boycott was there when Ellen said, I have lost the fight, the battle against corruption. Where was all these jobs he was creating? 80% of the money that was in Liberia was from NGOs, was from foreign entity. How many jobs did she create? Tell us a job number. Let me leave off with this. I had to do this real quick. I'm going to summarize a report that I sent to ASHFORD about Joseph Boycott and his participation in corruption that led to the Civil War. Okay, the United States government gave to Liberia $480 million in 1980. Okay, through a program called Food for Peace. That's a fact. I have the report and I will spread it on social media. We're going to do that in the coming days. Okay, here's what they found out. It was from Ted Kennedy, who was next door in Massachusetts. Some of the money was missing. So he ordered an audit. Here's what the audit found. Okay, this is what you're going to read. The money was stolen. 16.5 million of that money was stolen by the agent responsible for that agency. The agency was LPMC. The agent they're talking about, they're naming the agent, but we know who he was. It was Joseph Boycott. Okay, the government-owned bank managing the account also withdrew a totaling 1.7 million of that dollars. Okay, under Boycott, 85 million was given to LPMC, not accounted for. Here's what they found out. When you talk about the Green Revolution, it was the United States government pouring money into Liberia, and this man was wastefully spending it and stealing the money. This is a fact. This is why Doe fired him when he was away. This one Doe fired him. He actually got Doe to to raise taxes on Liberians to make up for this money that America was asking for accountability for. Because of that, Doe had to try to find this money someplace else. And when he pressed the Liberian people, that's when they turned on him. And Doe then tried to turn to the communists, and America said, we're not no longer going to work with you. This is what led to Doe's downfall. Joseph Boyka's corruption. This report is going to be out everywhere. I didn't make that up. Okay, and everyone's going to see that Joseph Boyka was directly responsible for taking money from 1980 to 1984 out of a budget that had when he was running LPMC. This is a fact. This man has created no jobs, nowhere. So when you talk about lighting project, you talk about he's a seasoned job creator. This our first time hearing this because it's not true. You're a pastor. You cannot just make up stories. What I'm saying to you, we're going to show you in black and white. Lastly, we keep going back to this first world, third world country. I think I told you it was about economic and industrial growth of a nation. So yes, developing country, not developing country. I told you because of this is not my expert area, just my education, what has been stuck in my head. But it's not to disparage any nation. I am a proud African. I'm a Pan-Africanist. I'm a crime man. I'm very, very proud of that. So I would never talk down to my people. It is just a language thing. And I thought I explained that before. This had nothing to do with disparaging our people or putting us in a second-class citizen place mentally. I'm talking about strictly industrial growth, period. Nothing more.
Okay, I will bring in.
So actually, notice that he said I'm a pastor, though.
Hold on, beg you. I will bring in.
No problem.
Listen, I will bring in Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts, and after that, we'll conclude with the response from Reverend Ade, and we'll call it a night. No closing statement because we're going over 2 hours. Mrs. Roberts.
They already got strategy for your Boga people. You're finished.
Mrs. Roberts, please.
Okay. Mr. Dapo, please mute yourself. I see you're having a great time tonight, and we appreciate that. We are happy to have a discussion where there's laughter and seriousness. In closing, I just want to thank you guys for being here. It's a great topic. I think I'm just not up to par tonight. I'm a little tired.
You're not closing. You're just making a statement. There'll be no closing statement tonight because we don't have time. So if you don't have something to say, then we can go to the Idatus. When he finishes, we'll call this a night because I think.
Okay, yeah, I do have something to say, but it will be my last say.
Okay.
So
go ahead.
You can call it non-closing. But in the end, after all is said and done, we'll just ask that our people make the logical conclusion. We overlook the people of Liberia to think that they don't have common sense. They do. They will look into all of these accusations, allegations, and performances and see who is right for the country. We're asking you to go and vote your conscience. Do not be bought. Do the right thing by what you feel, or from the list of candidates. You choose what will make a difference in your life and your children's lives. Thank you so much.
Reverend Ade will get the last word, and we'll go home tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Garley. It is quite disappointing that others will accuse one of being a pastor, but at the same time spewing lies concerning Joseph Boyka's corruption, when in fact there's no document ever to prove that Mr. Boyka ever stole 16 million, and that is why Doe fired him. So this kind of made up misstatements because you want to score a political point is completely, disappointing for the level of integrity and platform that we have. So let's be very clear. It makes sense for the ANC and CDC to collaborate against the front runner. I'm not disappointed by that. It is clear that attacking Mr. Joseph Boyka makes it very clear and simple that he is the next president incoming, given his expertise and experience to lead Liberia for greater good. So the fact that you are attacking him makes every sense because you are, quite frankly, know that he's the most experienced, the most committed to his country, and did more for his country concerning someone who is just trying to be president and demonstrates that he wants to lead his people and begin to do things for Liberia. It's rather unfortunate that we'll have to degenerate to be attacking each other when we should be uniting against this kleptocracy of a government called George Weah and the kakistocracy we're currently looking at. It is very clear that Liberians have seen the difference and truly understand that this country is not a country where you practice. We need someone who is seasoned, expert, and has demonstrable expertise and experience in promoting Liberia for its greater good. And Joseph Boyka represents that reality. And that is why I'm not surprised that CDC and ANC will constantly continue to attack this guy because of what he brings to the table. And Liberians are looking forward to a country, as I close, where young people can have their dreams and aspirations realized through one who is a visionary, one who has not paraded with the wealth of the Liberian people as the CDC government is doing, one who is not looking forward to bring the Pan-African group back to exploit the resources of our country through the hands of Mr. Cummings and the alien-led government that has, quite frankly, exploited our nations today. The 50 bogus agreements you talk about all the time, we see that the Honorable Cummings was highly participatory in a part of this exploitation of our resources. So make no mistake, you want to talk about politics by association and guilt by association and fabrication, we can traffic in that. But what does it do for the healthiness and substance of winning the hearts and minds of Liberian people? Lies wouldn't work. And that is why we must speak truth to power. And if Mr. Cummings is going to lie his way through power, it's not going to be a reality. So let's be very clear. You surrogates need to understand that lying your way to power would never, ever be a reality for us. So let's be honest. I'm a pastor because I believe in the man of integrity who has not stolen the wealth of the Liberian people, who committed his life philanthropically to the well-being of young boys and girls and the nation state at large. Liberians, you have a choice to make. A choice between an expert who has experience in the field as opposed to a neophyte who is coming to practice about your government. Thank you.
Well, folks, I'm afraid that's all the time we have to be with you tonight. God willing, we'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. Until then, please allow me to borrow the wordings of the wise man. Tough times don't last, tough people do. The height of a man is never known until he rises, because there's no second chance to make that first impression. He doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than a lion. Africa's media do extraordinary. ASHFORD GARLEY, have a great night.